My name's Aaron, I'm 31, and until recently, I would have said I was close with my younger brother, Jake. We weren't those call every day kind of siblings, but we grew up tight, shared bunk beds, built Lego cities together, even covered for each other during high school parties gone sideways. When he moved 3 states over for a job in finance and met his now fiancée, Courtney, I was genuinely happy for him. I hadn't met her in person yet, but he'd sent me photos and gushed about her in texts. She's classy, he'd say. Sophisticated. She makes me level up, man. I didn't quite know what that meant, but I told him I was proud of him. When he hinted at proposing, I even offered to help with the ring. At first, he refused, but a few weeks later, he called and asked, somewhat sheepishly, if I was serious. Yeah, I said without hesitation. 10 grand. Just don't get scammed at a mall kiosk. I wired it the next day. No strings, no contract, just family. Fast forward to the week of the engagement party. Jake called me up and asked if I'd be coming. I live 9 hours away, but I said of course. I wouldn't miss it. Courtney's family is coming in from California, so it's gonna be big, he said. I booked a hotel for 2 nights, cleaned out my car, and loaded up a bottle of vintage wine I'd been saving since college, something I thought might make a nice engagement gift. I even bought a new dress shirt. I wanted to look sharp, especially if I was going to meet the future in-laws. I pulled into the event venue on a Saturday afternoon, a nice country club on the outskirts of town, and parked beside a sea of expensive SUVs and luxury sedans. Already, I felt slightly out of place. The moment I walked through the double doors, I saw Courtney. She was standing with 2 other women, laughing. Jake hadn't seen me yet, so I approached her first, smiling. Hi, you must be Courtney. I'm Aaron. She glanced at me. Not smiled. Not nodded. Just scanned. Her eyes flicked from my shoes to my collar like she was trying to find a reason to be unimpressed. Then she leaned in slightly, tilted her head, and with this passive, sugary tone, said, "Oh, you showed up?" I blinked, thinking maybe I misheard her. But then she turned to one of the women beside her and muttered, loud enough for me to catch, "We already have too many nobodies here." The woman beside her let out a little chuckle like it was an inside joke. I stood there, stunned. I wanted to believe I misinterpreted the tone, or that maybe it was some weird attempt at dry humor, but the disdain on her face was unmistakable. She didn't introduce me to anyone, didn't call Jake over, just turned slightly, signaling the conversation was over. That's when I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was intentional. Dismissal, with a smile. And I wasn't about to stand there like a decorative coat rack, hoping someone would acknowledge I'd driven 600 miles to be treated like a nobody. I looked around the room. It was packed. Waiters floated by with champagne. Laughter echoed from polished corners of the space. Somewhere in the back, I spotted Jake, my brother, talking to what looked like her dad and a man in a gray blazer. For a split second, I thought about pushing through the crowd, finding him, telling him what she said. But then another thought hit me. If this is how she acted before marriage, when things are supposed to be polite and welcoming, how is she going to treat the rest of the family afterward? And more importantly, how did Jake not see this? I stepped outside. The sun was already beginning to dip, casting a soft glow over the parking lot. I sat in my car for a full 5 minutes, letting the heat soak into the seats, my fingers still wrapped around the wine bottle I never got to hand over. My phone buzzed, 2 texts from Jake. "Where are you?" Followed by, "Courtney said she saw you. Everything okay?" I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my banking app. The transfer I'd made for the ring, it hadn't been that long ago. And because I'd sent it via Zelle through my business account, and the funds hadn't fully settled into his yet due to a flagged transaction note, I still had a narrow window. I pressed reverse transaction. It pinged for a moment, then confirmed. My chest felt weird. Not triumphant, not guilty. Just solid. Like I was putting a brick back into place that had been loosened. I stared at the confirmation screen for another few seconds, then blocked both their numbers. The wine bottle stayed in the passenger seat. And as I pulled out of the lot, I glanced once in the rearview mirror at the glowing venue behind me, full of people who apparently did belong. That night, back at my hotel, I ordered a burger, sat on the bed, and posted one single screenshot to Instagram. The reverse transaction. 10 grand. Gone. Caption simply, "Congrats to the happy couple. Hope entitlement pays better than I did." The next morning, my phone stayed quiet. No buzzing, no calls, no texts. It was like the world had collectively inhaled and decided to hold its breath. I checked my socials once. My post had already gathered a few subtle likes from cousins and old friends who, I suspected, knew exactly what it meant without needing an explanation. No one commented. Not publicly. But my DMs? Those started lighting up by noon. First was my cousin Lexi. Wait, was that real? Then my aunt, who always said Jake was too quick to fall in love. I had a feeling about her. And then a message from my old friend Malik, who had been at Jake's graduation years ago. Man, that's cold. You good? But not a word from Jake. I checked WhatsApp. He hadn't even opened the last message I'd sent him 3 days prior about road conditions on the way up. Still unread. Still gray. I could imagine the situation unfolding in real time. Courtney scrolling, seeing the post, realizing what it meant. Jake standing behind her, maybe at first confused, maybe thinking it was some sort of joke. Then realizing the money, the actual $10,000, was no longer theirs. That this wasn't symbolic. It was real. That night, I got an unexpected call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, then listened. It was Jake. His voice was tight, stressed. Aaron, listen, I don't know what happened yesterday. I'm trying to understand why you left without saying anything. Courtney said you were rude? I don't know, man. She said you made a scene. I didn't see anything myself. I was talking to her dad. But now this post? The transfer? Bro, this is really not cool. Can we talk? I stared at the wall for a long time before deleting the message. He still didn't get it. I hadn't made a scene. I hadn't raised my voice, hadn't even caused a ripple in their perfectly curated social spectacle. But to Courtney, my silence was the problem. She wanted to look down and have me stay there. Instead, I walked away. That didn't fit the narrative she'd crafted in her head, and now she was scrambling to rewrite it. And Jake? Jake was stuck trying to keep up, still spinning plates for someone who didn't see people, only utility. The next message came not from Jake, but from his fiancée. And this time, she didn't bother with fake pleasantries. Hey Aaron, not sure what the point of that post was, but it's incredibly childish and inappropriate. Jake is devastated. We had family flying in, vendors, everything. This was supposed to be a joyful day. Your little stunt made people ask questions. I don't know what you thought you were proving, but congratulations, I guess. You embarrassed yourself more than anyone. Hope it was worth it. That one, I screenshotted. For myself. As a reminder of how people show you who they are when they think you owe them something. I didn't reply. Instead, I turned off my phone for the day and drove to a nearby state park. Walked a trail I found by accident. Ate a sandwich in total silence, under a tree, while my thoughts played ping-pong in my head. Was I overreacting? Maybe. But here's what stuck with me. I'd offered help without being asked. I'd driven nearly half a day to show support. I'd shown up, not for recognition, but because that's what family does. And the second I no longer served a role in her vision of the perfect celebration, I was dismissed like background noise. Not even with malice, worse, with indifference. 2 days later, things escalated. I came home to a letter in the mail. An actual printed letter, postmarked from Jake and Courtney's address. Inside was a carefully worded but icy message that read like it had been proofread by 3 different lawyers and 1 wedding planner. It started with, "We regret that tensions have escalated between us in a way that overshadowed what should have been a celebration of love and family." Then it moved to, "While we understand that emotions were high, your decision to revoke your generous contribution has created complications we're now left to resolve." And finally, "We kindly ask that you consider rescinding the funds as previously agreed. If not, we may have to explore other avenues to ensure commitments are honored." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because they thought they could guilt me into paying for the privilege of being insulted. That last line, especially, "explore other avenues," sounded like a threat wrapped in wedding lace. So I made a decision. If this was about optics, then I'd give them optics. I opened my laptop, pulled up a fresh post, and started writing. Not petty, not angry, just facts. I laid it out, that I gifted the ring money without condition, showed up with joy in my heart, was dismissed to my face like an uninvited ghost, and quietly removed myself. That I hadn't wanted drama, hadn't posted names, but they had pushed me to the point where now I felt no obligation to remain silent. I even included Courtney's text, no names, again, just screenshots with the names blacked out. The words spoke for themselves. I hit post. It went viral in hours. But that's where things really started to unravel. By the time I woke up the next morning, the post had over 11,000 likes and nearly 2,000 comments. I hadn't expected that. I figured maybe some mild traction, some Reddit-level justice for a messy sibling story. But this was wildfire. People dissected every line, praised the quiet walkout as classy, analyzed Courtney's text like it was a villain monologue, and most of all, flooded the thread with their own stories of being treated like outsiders by people who were supposed to be family. And that's when the DMs started again. But this time, it wasn't from family. It was from strangers. One message read, "Please tell me you didn't send the money again. You handled that like a boss." Another, "Bro, I got disinvited from my sister's wedding after I paid for her cake. I wish I had done what you did." People were invested. But the ones that really got to me were from other siblings, people who were always the helper, the fixer, the one who paid for dinner and never got a thank you. I didn't realize how many errands were out there until the internet showed me. But not everyone was on my side. My mom called that afternoon. I ignored it. She called again. Then came the voicemail. "Aaron, what is going on? Your brother just called me in tears. Courtney is humiliated. Her parents saw whatever it is you posted. I don't know what she said to you, but this has gone too far. It's public now. You need to fix this. We are a family. We are a family." That line hit me harder than I expected. Not because it was true, but because I had always believed in it, even when no one else seemed to live by it. I called her back. "Hey, Mom. Aaron. Thank God. Listen." "No," I interrupted. "You listen. Did Jake tell you what she said to me when I walked in?" She went quiet. I showed up. I brought a gift. I smiled. And she looked me up and down and said they already had too many nobodies there. "You think I made that up?" More silence. Then, her voice, softer now. "She may have mentioned something about a misunderstanding. There was no misunderstanding, Mom. She meant it. And you know what? It's fine. She can think whatever she wants. But I'm not paying for people who treat me like lint on their designer blazer." Her tone hardened again. "You didn't have to embarrass them." "No, Mom. They embarrassed themselves. I just held up a mirror." And with that, I hung up. I don't think I'd ever done that before. Hanging up on my mom wasn't something I thought I was even capable of doing. But something had cracked open in me. Not in a dramatic way. Just a slow, steady realization that I'd spent my entire life trying to earn scraps of approval from people who wouldn't even save me a seat at the table. Literally. Over the next couple days, Jake finally responded to the growing online firestorm. His first attempt was a vague Instagram story with some generic quote about family always finding a way back to each other. That got ratioed in the comments section by people linking my original post. Then Courtney posted a staged black and white photo of the two of them holding hands with a caption that read, "Sometimes the people you think are in your corner are only there to keep you in your place." That one? Oh, it backfired. Hard. Her comments were flooded. "Girl, you paid for your ring. Imagine insulting the wallet and still expecting to keep the gift. Sis, this is not the flex you think it is." A week passed. I figured things would eventually die down, and I'd go back to work and leave the circus behind. But then I got a call from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Uncle Drew. Now, Drew is one of those relatives that shows up at holidays with stories too wild to be real and a laugh that sounds like gravel in a blender. But he's also the guy who loaned my dad money when his business went under, never asked for it back, and once drove across 3 states to help my cousin move out of an abusive relationship. Basically, if anyone in the family could smell nonsense, it was Drew. "Kid," he said when I answered. "You've been busy." I laughed weakly. "Yeah, didn't mean for it to blow up." "Don't apologize," he said. "You handled that better than most would have. But listen, something's coming. You should be ready." "What do you mean?" "Let's just say Courtney's folks don't like the bad press. Her dad's got connections. He's worried about how this makes them look. Word is, they're trying to dig into you." I sat up straighter. What does that even mean? I'm not famous. I'm not rich. I'm not. They don't care. They're used to power working for them. They think if they can discredit you, maybe they can rewrite the story, make you look unstable, bitter, that sort of thing. I figured you should know. I thanked him, hung up, and sat in total silence. Discredit me? For what? For refusing to fund my own humiliation? That night, I started locking everything down. Set my social profiles to private. Changed passwords. Double-checked my financial accounts. Because even if it sounded paranoid, I wasn't going to be the guy who shrugged it off and then got blindsided. Then, just when I thought the worst of it had passed, I got an envelope in the mail. Plain white. No return address. Inside? A printed screenshot of my Instagram post and a typed message. "This isn't over. Some things are bigger than you." Choose wisely. I stared at that typed message for a long time. The paper was thick, high quality. The kind used for resumes or courtroom letters. No handwriting, no return address. Just that line, centered and ominous. This isn't over. Some things are bigger than you. Choose wisely. It felt like the kind of vague, arrogant warning someone gives when they think intimidation works better than logic. And honestly, for a second, it did shake me. The fact that someone had taken the time to print a screenshot and physically mail it felt so theatrical, so specific, that I realized this wasn't just someone venting their frustration. This was a warning shot. I knew immediately where it had come from. Courtney's father, Rick, was a former district manager for some Fortune 500 company. I'd only ever seen him in photos, all of which looked like LinkedIn profile pictures with just a little too much smugness behind the smile. Jake had mentioned once that Rick ran his family like a business, and I finally understood what that meant. Control, image, leverage. Everything had to serve a narrative. And when it didn't, Rick found a way to spin it or crush it. This was spin. I didn't respond. I didn't tell Jake. I didn't post anything. Instead, I lawyered up. I had a friend from college named Serena who'd become a civil litigator. Brilliant, sharp as a tack, and someone who'd been by my side when I was broke, anxious, and starting out in the real world. I called her up and explained everything start to finish. She didn't even hesitate. "You need to get ahead of this," she said. "Because if they're willing to go this far over a social media post and 10 grand, they're trying to make you their cautionary tale. You embarrass them in a space they thought they controlled. They'll want to reestablish dominance." The next day, Serena filed a preemptive cease and desist letter. It wasn't aggressive, just formal and clear. It laid out the facts. I had every right to reverse the transaction given it was a gift and the transfer had not completed. I had not named names in my post. I had not violated any laws or engaged in slander. However, if attempts were made to harass or intimidate me, legal recourse would follow. We mailed a copy to Jake and Courtney's address, then one to Rick's home and his work address. Then, for good measure, Serena posted a redacted version of the letter to her professional page with a caption that simply said, "A reminder that threats don't always land quietly." And like dominoes, everything began to fall. I didn't hear from Jake directly, but my cousin Lexi did. She messaged me saying Jake had lost it after the letter arrived. Apparently, Rick had promised to clean up the situation, and now it was turning into a PR mess. Courtney's father had connections, sure, but not enough to bully a documented legal case into disappearing. They couldn't claim defamation without specifics. They couldn't touch me financially. And trying to paint me as a problematic sibling only backfired once people started asking why their golden boy needed my money to propose in the first place. 2 weeks later, another envelope arrived. This one had handwriting. Jake's. Inside was a card, the kind you'd find at a gas station last minute. It said, "Sorry," in gold letters, and nothing else. But inside, Jake had written, "I messed up. I know. I should have said something when she talked to you like that. I was scared. I still am. But this has spiraled, and I think you were the only one brave enough to walk away. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve any of this. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just didn't want to stay silent anymore." It wasn't much, but it was something. I sat with the card in my lap, wondering if I should reply, wondering if I wanted to. I thought about all the times I'd covered for Jake, supported him, made excuses for him when our parents praised his achievements and glanced over mine. I thought about the long car ride I'd taken, the wine bottle I never gave, the look on Courtney's face like I was some stray animal that had wandered into her polished party. And then I thought about that smile I gave her. The one I gave before I reversed the payment, before I blocked them, before I walked out. I'd never felt more calm in my life. So I didn't respond. Instead, I packed up the card with the letter and the envelope and tucked them into a folder. Not out of spite, but as proof. Proof that sometimes the people closest to you won't defend you. Sometimes they'll sit back and let others humiliate you, just to keep the peace. And when you finally stand up for yourself, you become the villain in their story. Let them write their story. I was writing mine too. I donated the $10,000 to a scholarship fund for first-gen college students from low-income backgrounds. I sent it in Jake's name. Quietly. No announcement. No receipts. Just a note that said, "To someone who deserves a future full of yes. Use it well." A week later, the engagement party video went private. Courtney's social media vanished. Jake's account became a blank profile photo. Mutual friends stopped asking questions. The world moved on. And so did I. I started traveling again, small trips at first. Places I'd always wanted to visit but kept putting off. I stopped trying to prove myself to people who only saw me as a backup plan. I started writing more, reconnecting with people who made me feel like I mattered, not like a budget line. The last message I got from Jake was months later. Just a text, "They're calling off the wedding." I stared at it for a long time, wondering what reaction he wanted from me. Sympathy? Relief? A high five? Maybe none of that. Maybe just acknowledgement. But I didn't reply. Not out of anger. I just didn't need to. Because for once, the silence wasn't mine to explain. The silence was his. And it was long overdue. As for me, I'm good. I didn't lose a brother. I just stopped pretending I still had one. And truthfully, that's the most peaceful ending I could ask for.